So we start in this process with to define outstanding success, and we ask ourselves the question, within our chosen market, what do we have to do to be considered an undeniable outstanding success by all of our judges, our constituents? So now the measure here is not by, part of our judges are our competition. We want anybody who looks at us and says, wow, look at what they did. Look at that. That's great. Within that ideal, we then ask the question, and by the way, on this first part, on this top line, asking that question about what would be outstanding, it's a 3-year horizon. So what would be the outcome, measurable at the end of 3 years that we would deliver that would be considered outstanding at the end of 3 years? And we want specific measures. We want it in precise language. It's usually a couple of sentences. It starts with a verb: deliver, achieve, accomplish, grow. And then it includes specific numbers and measures. And it is the outcome that you would expect at the end of 3 years. The reason it's 3 years is that 5 years is too long. Most organizations look at 5 years and it's just a dream. And casting numbers, specific numbers for 5 years, is easy to do and hard to track. But 3 years is within reach. So we start with a 3-year horizon for the OSPs, and we go for 5 to 7 OSPs, no more than 7. That is the 5 most important things, or the 7 most important things that you would have to accomplish in 3 years to absolutely be outstanding. Nothing else. And how do we get rid of everything that doesn't matter? Once we've defined those 5 to 7 outcomes with measures for the end of that 3-year period, what will happen, what will be accomplished, we then ratchet it down and say, within that ideal, what is most important and what is least important? And the way that we do that is with a process of weightings. We take 100 points for each one of the 5 items, let's say, and we divide those 100 points to heavily skew the weightings. We look to try to find something that is the most important and weight it heavily, like 30 or 35% of the total weighting, or 40% of the total weighting, which might leave only 10% of the weighting for one of the 5 or 7 or 5%. But what we're looking to do is to give everybody in the organization a clear signal as to where our attention needs to be. And those weightings can change from year to year. So this is 3-year horizon, and now they're weighted. The next level down, the 3rd level down, is what can we do company-wide to come as close to the ideal as possible on what is most important. And that is deliverables for the next 12 months. That is, how do we get as close as we can to the 3-year goal in this next year? And what are the 10 to 12 items now that have to be accomplished in this next 12 months to attain that close proximity to that 3-year goal? And each of those items are again weighted. Then the next step is, how do we stop or minimize the items that will not contribute to outstanding performance? And this, believe me, is as difficult as defining outstanding performance. You cannot achieve outstanding performance unless you give something up. People that become experts in the arts or in sports give up everything else that's going on. A person who wants to become a concert pianist doesn't also become an outstanding downhill skier, great at baseball, an expert oil painter, an accountant. They give up everything to do that. That philosophy for outstanding performance has to apply within the company. We have to get down to those 5 items and the 10 to 12 tasks for this next year. And everything else that we can scrap has to be scrapped, as hard as that is. We then assign the weightings to both the OSPs of the deliverables, and we also assign accountabilities. Unlike conventional mechanisms here on the left, the accountabilities for OSPs for deliverables, not for OSPs. There are no accountabilities for the OSP. They're departmental or the organization-wide. But the accountabilities where we put a name on a deliverable is one name. We have a quarterback, a single person who, even if a team is involved, we have to make sure that we pick one person who's going to be responsible for driving that and reporting on it. And the joke that I have with my team is that I want one neck to wring. But I would also suggest to you that your job is made much easier by knowing who you can turn to, who's coordinating any team effort if it requires a team to get something done. Accountabilities need to be a single person. And then we assign specific due dates for each one of them. At the end, we define what are called outstanding failure possibilities and roadblocks. So OFPs are, let's now, knowing that we're taking more risk to try to get to outstanding performance, let's make sure that we avoid anything that would cause us to totally fail, since we're taking greater risk. And they are typically things like a loss of confidence of your board of directors, where you're not meeting your targets and dates and numbers, and you've told them over and over you're going to do that. It means destroying the relationship and the confidence of your customers. It means destroying the confidence of your employees, where people don't believe that it's a good place to work any longer. There are many things. You could have a regulatory breach where suddenly your regulators look at your company and they no longer have confidence in you and what you're doing and don't trust you. You can have a breach of security. So it's important to define them, because what we're trying to do is, while we're focusing in the organization on what has to be done to be outstanding, and we develop a language, a lexicon around that, and attune all of our employees to being outstanding, we also want a hyper focus on avoiding anything that would cause outstanding failure. And we want people to raise their hand the minute they sniff out something that could signal a possible OFP. We also want to define roadblocks for these OSPs. We want to list the things that are standing in our way, because those roadblocks need to be knocked down as quickly as possible. So this is a very high-level overview of the philosophy. There is not an expectation that you will know how to do all of this after this, but it gives you some degree of understanding of what's behind the program. You'll become much more comfortable with this once you go through an OSP session and you see the system. When OSPs are created, I'm going to go beyond this, but what this says is that these plans, if you look at them, look very similar, but in fact, they're very different in the way that they operate and how they originated. So now, as I was saying, if you were to look at the actual implementation of OSPs, here is an example, and this is in your handout that's available. Here are real OSPs that are written on the left. You can see how these are 5 OSPs for an organization. You can see the categories in the blue line for them. So we have a heading for each one, A, B, C, D, E. And then you can see how specific each one of them is written for what will happen at the end of 3 years in measures. And then you can see just to the right, above each gray mark, what the weighting is that we've assigned to each one of those OSPs, and how we've skewed the weightings for the 2 that are the absolute most important, A and C. Now we look at one of those OSPs, OSPB, the 3-year outcome, and we say, what are we going to do in the next 12 months? And that's on the right side of the sheet, and these are deliverables. This doesn't show you all of the deliverables. There are 10 to 12 blue line deliverables. That is, what are we going to do specifically to accomplish? And then the sub-deliverables are steps that we'll take to get there to deliver that. But you can see how specific they are, and that the blue line deliverables, 10 to 12 items that have to be accomplished this year, are going to be weighted as well. So in the end of doing this process, when we look at attainment, we ask individuals for their OSPs to put down percentage of attainment. How much got done? And it's just it's a qualitative judgment. We're trying to quantify something that is a quality judgment. So did you get 80% of that done? Did you get 100% of it done? Did you complete it all? We take that percentage of attainment and we multiply it times the weight of the deliverable and multiply that product times the weight of the OSP. And we sum those products to get a total attainment. Again, a little more detail than what you need at this point, but know that you typically, for an entire organization, an entire company, we come up with total attainments. And in the first year, the total attainment with an OSP process is typically in the mid 80, sometimes in the low 80 percentile. But what happens in year 2 is that they're either close to 90 or they're at 90%. And by year 3 of doing this, they're so good at defining these OSPs and getting rid of the things that don't matter and getting the organization in alignment to what happens is that the attainment gets into 93, 95 percentile. So what also happens in this process, so that we're not afraid of working too hard or somebody demanding things that we can't do, is that there's a certain amount of re-education and reconditioning that happens to the people who are judging performance. And that is, as a CEO, I typically go to my board and I say, we have a series of objectives that are beyond what we can attain. We call them OSPs, Outstanding Success Possibilities. Our expectation is that we're setting these high goals, but we will probably attain this year somewhere around 85%. And as the CEO, I'm making a judgment that full payout of bonuses will happen at this year at 85. At next year, we'll set full attainment for payout of bonuses at 90. At the following year, we're going to set full attainment of bonuses at 93%. So there is a financial reward and expectations that are set in alignment with the people who make compensation decisions. I typically don't pay raises based on these. I pay raises based upon responsibility and the capacity of people to make a valuable contribution broadly in the company, not just on OSPs. I don't make promotion decisions based upon that. I do, however, with my direct reports as the CEO, only promote individuals that I consider proxies. And if you are managing a team, my recommendation to you is that you encourage proxy relationships, and it is only those who attain proxy level relationships with each other in the team and with you as the boss and with the company in order to be successful. So I hope this has helped. You will find out much more about managing for outstanding success as this goes forward. This is what a performance program looks like for day-to-day reporting and assessment. It's a red light, yellow light, green light program. It flashes exceptions. You only look at the exceptions, but that will be explained. And the goal here in the running of the system is that no person needs to spend more than 20 minutes a week updating where they are, and no manager needs to spend more than 30 minutes a week examining where the company stands on what's important. The handouts, again, are available at this link. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I wish you all to attain all that you would expect in order to achieve outstanding performance. I believe outstanding performance leads to personal happiness and fulfillment. We all want to be part of an organization that is outstanding. It's not fun to be an organization that's average. You have the ability to attract more talent. You have the ability to make a contribution. And let's set our goals high. Let's change the world. Thank you very much.